What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports and NFL National Football League podcast. Oh, yeah. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host, and it's a Tuesdays with Brady. Pow, pow, pew, pew, pew. Leger Douzable, Brady Quinn. What's up, fellas? Chilling in the studio. Incredible graphics all around you.
Oh, yeah. You see it. Nice little lounge set up here.
It's really comfy in here, Will.
It really is, man.
We're only missing one thing, buddy. That's you. That's you.
I wish I was there.
Make a trip down south, my guy.
I used to come down there once a week. I love South Florida.
I know. We miss you. South Florida misses you, too.
Yeah. We had that whole incident downtown where then they stopped sending me. Remember?
I don't, but
I need this story.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Nothing ever happened. We would have got drinks like one time and nothing even happened. I mean, you fought that guy. You fought that guy, and I had to jump through the plate glass window. But other than that, like nothing really happened.
My goodness, wasn't that like the skit from One Tree Hill?
Pretty much.
Carolina guy.
You got him.
Yeah.
You got him.
We're gonna jump into something, but I do have a question about. You guys were mentioning something before the podcast started. The Carolina Panthers are interviewing Brian Johnson, the Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator. Do you think, now I know what you're thinking.
Oh, God.
But I have a different.
Do you know what we're thinking?
What are we thinking?
I know exactly what you're thinking.
Because I said,
but I have a different spin on it.
Oh, okay. Let's hear your spin, Will.
This is not the Panthers trying to comply with anything. Is that what the suggestion is? It's instead the Carolina.
Say what you said. Those are your words.
Maybe. Yeah.
Instead, the Carolina.
I think it's interesting that a lot of people. We were talking about this, and a lot of Eagles fans were like, "We will drop Brian Johnson off in front of Carolina if they want him." So I thought it was just an interesting tweet when I saw that he was interviewing for. I mean, amazing opportunity for him. So I don't want to take anything away from Brian Johnson at all. But it was a little interesting.
It caught me off guard too. Bill Barnwell. I did Bill Barnwell's podcast earlier today, and we joked about this.
Hey, Bill.
I think it's possible that they accidentally requested the wrong B. Johnson. Like the Panthers screwed up. They were like, "Man, we want Ben Johnson," and they actually accidentally asked for Brian Johnson. And Brian Johnson.
There's no way. How crazy would that be?
And now Brian Johnson has the opportunity. You just got to show up in Lions gear if you're Brian Johnson. Like you show up in like a Lions pullover and a Lions hat, and you're like, and you like start FaceTiming Jared Goff. Like you get Jared Goff's number, you start FaceTiming him, and like be like, "Yo, dude, just act like we're friends." And you get $40 million from David Tepper. You're like, "No, Dave, that reported about $15 million. That's not true. I'll take $5 million a year to coach this team." And David Tepper's like, "I've done it again," and all of a sudden.
Well, the interesting thing is, let's not forget when Brian Flores was interviewing for the Giants job, he texts Bill Belichick, asked him, Bill Belichick texted him and was like, "Congrats." He was like, "Well, I think I do got a good chance." And then he realized, like, maybe he's not talking to me. He was like, "Bill, are you talking about Brian Dable? Not me?" So could this be the same type of thing that happened?
There was Brian Gate. Now we have Johnson Gate. This
I like that.
Well, because if you think about it too, like usually when you register for like an email account, it'll be like, L Douzable.
You have your name in there some type of way.
Yeah, but usually it's like your first initial dot last name at whatever.
Mine's different.
So
maybe people, I mean, Look, Johnson Gate.
Will, what's your email here at Paramount?
Well,
we'll get all type of emails.
No, my email doesn't work, but it's will.brinson@paramount.com.
Okay, there you go.
Email
away. Full government name on there.
Email them all you want.
Full government
email me all you
there.
want. I used to actually give out my email on the podcast and tell people to email and DM me, I would answer fantasy questions for them. But then
look at this good Samaritan.
Why would they ask you about fantasy?
I'm good at fantasy.
Ooh.
All right.
Okay.
He's like, "What you trying to say?"
Guy wins 1 week against Dews in like a 3-week 2-man playoff league, and all of a sudden he thinks he's smart.
That's right. What's up, Will?
Hey man, I'm a tough out in fantasy, man. I'm a tough out.
Dews 1-2, Brady 1-1. All right, let's get into it. Speaking of Johnson Gate, let's head to Buffalo. Where
there's never been any issues that could be considered Johnson Gate in Buffalo have there?
My goodness.
I thought you'd like that one, Brady. It's Buffalo, where the Buffalo Bills and Pittsburgh Steelers will play a football game on CBS and on Paramount Plus. And we could get that. We had a situation where the total of this game dropped 6 to 7 points in a 12-hour span because of the weather, because it's going to be so cold and windy. And then in Kansas City, where the Dolphins will go from where you hot weathered like layabouts are down in South Florida.
Reptilian people.
Yeah, you reptiles with your iguanas falling out of the trees when it drops to 55 degrees.
That is true.
And go to Kansas City, where the wind chill, it's expected to be 5 degrees with a wind chill of -10, potentially the coldest game for both franchises, the Chiefs and the Dolphins. What do you guys think? You guys are, dudes, you played for the Jets and the Bills. Brady, you played.
I did.
Brady, you spent your whole life bopping around the Rust Belt, battling through the cold. We've talked about how hard we talked about injuries in the cold in that Monday Night Football game. How much of a factor? So I just sort of like curious what you guys like. Do you get excited for cold games like this, like insane weather games? Are you like, oh crap, this is gonna suck for several hours? I mean, you both live in South Florida, so I don't know like how you actually feel about these cold weather games, or you're just trying to evade, like trying to get out of there for like tax purposes. I'm curious what you guys think about these cold weather games.
I don't think I think I had a pretty good record of like playing in games below 40 or 50 degrees, like for whatever that means. I mean, I don't know what that means, but I loved playing cold weather. I grew up playing cold weather. It never bothered me. I think most people, when like you think about how cold weather impacts the game, it's not that big of a deal to me. There's like 3 things that stand out. The first is obviously the grip of the football. Yeah. If it's cold, quarterbacks a lot of times have options. You can just wear a muff and use your hands. You can have a glove on your off hand, glove on both hands. The problem is once you put the glove on your throwing hand, you cannot take it off. Right. It feels so different throwing with a glove on than trying to take it off and throw it afterwards. It's just, you can't do it game day. I always think it's really, really hard for guys to adjust. So you got to commit. You're either wearing gloves on both or one or not at all. And that's usually how it works out. So the grip is the first thing. And if, again, you can't feel your fingers as well, you're not going to be able to spin it or feel it as well, which then becomes an issue if there's wind. So in Buffalo, for our CBS Paramount Plus game, it's going to be windy. And that's what makes it really, really difficult for quarterbacks then. If you're having a hard time throwing a spiral, that wind, depending if it's a crosswind or going one direction or the other down the field, could impact the spiral and you actually have the football, and obviously how far you can throw down the field. Yeah. And then the final thing I'll say is, and this one is like one of my biggest pet peeves. Were you one of the guys who would rub like Vaseline on their arms and all that? And not
for sure.
Okay.
And we had this thing called it was warm. What was it called? Warm something. It was like the white cream you could that heats your body up.
Like Tiger Balm and all that.
Yeah.
So here's the problem: is you would get guys who are ball carriers that they be putting this Vaseline on their sleeves or on their arms, and so they'd be running around putting the ball in there, and like that thing would be slick all of a sudden, and you were like, no. Wear sleeves or wipe. I'd be like wiping off like people's arms. What are you doing? I'm like, dude, you can't put that on the football. So those are always like the biggest concerns, because you think it's funny, but like the reality is you'd be getting a snap and you'd be in the football and it's like it'd be so slick as all get out just because the Vaseline got stuck on there because some guy was carrying the ball with good ball security, getting 5 points of pressure and all that on there.
So yeah, unlike Brady, I grew up in Florida, right? So as far as playing in cold weather, it doesn't bother me as much, but that Kansas City game, that's a bit different, right? We were talking about this before we got on air. When it's single digits and then with the wind chill becomes negative, that's a totally different animal in itself, right? Like every time you disengage, just talking about from trenches play, disengage with an offensive lineman, like your fingers feel like they get jammed every single play. Will and Brady, when you hit the ground, it literally feels like you're hitting concrete. And it takes so long to get up. Like you almost don't want to hit anybody when it's that cold. Because we were just talking about it. We played the Cleveland Browns. I believe it was second to the last week of the season in Buffalo in 2016. And it was one of the coldest, probably the coldest game I ever played in. I think it was 5 degrees, but with the wind chill, it was like -10.
Right.
And literally every time, like I would either hit RG3 because he was the quarterback at that time, or engage with the offensive lineman, I felt like my fingers were breaking every single play. So like when it's that cold, no matter how many jackets you got on the sideline, no matter how hot the heated bench is, you just never feel warm enough. You always feel cold. So it literally becomes like a mental gymnastic. Like you got to tell yourself, it's not that cold. It's not that cold.
Bro, Will, there'd be times where like it'd be so cold. I think in 2009 we played a game. It was -6 with a wind chill versus Pittsburgh at home in Cleveland. And I remember guys would be getting up there like, I should have never sat down on the bench because you would not want to get back up because it was so damn cold and the bench felt so warm and cozy. Like it was a battle every time to like go back out there. And so you were just like, man, this is excruciating to be in there. So it definitely can change the overall demeanor, but this is the playoffs. So
it is. You got to put that behind you.
That's like regular season.
Not to pivot away too quickly from the cold weather games, but we have some breaking news. And like you think I'm like, oh, breaking news. Like you're gonna be like shocked.
Let's hear it, Will.
Oh, I want to hear. I'm about to get on Twitter right now. What's going on?
Pete Carroll is out as Seahawks coach.
No.
That is not that shocking, though.
Really? That's not shocking to you?
No, because we heard rumors this year about that there might be a time for him to step down, and maybe, just maybe, there's a guy who has some experience there, coached them back when they won a Super Bowl.
Cowboys.
Will be a really, really good fit there with Dan Quinn at the Cowboys. And so I think what makes this really, really interesting now is let's just say, for example, Green Bay goes into Dallas and beats the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. And you're Jerry Jones, who was very non-committal about Mike McCarthy and kind of wait and see how things go.
I love how this is playing.
What do you do? Because now you're going to be in competition with Dan Quinn. Like, is Jerry Jones going to lock him up in his huge estate there in Dallas? And like, you're not going to Seattle. I'm not letting you out of here.
Well, I'm so glad you said that because we were actually talking about this last week on the podcast, and me and Ryan Wilson were saying there's no way if they lose in the wild card round that McCarthy's staying around because they built that team to make a run at least at the NFC Championship game, bare minimum. I think it's NFC Championship or bust for Mike McCarthy this year just because the way this team is constructed. So that's an interesting point. If Green Bay somehow, which Green Bay's had a lot of success, they won the last 4 against the Cowboys. They've never lost at AT&T Stadium. Now, again, that was Aaron Rodgers as quarterback. But it'd be real interesting to see now that the Seattle job is available, what would Dan Quinn do? Would he want to stay in Dallas or would he want to go to Seattle?
I was just going to say real quickly, the Seahawks have actually issued a statement. After thoughtful meetings and careful consideration for the best interest of the franchise, we have amicably agreed with Pete Carroll that his role will evolve from head coach to remain with the organization as an advisor. And I think that's interesting because it's basically like, look, Pete, I mean, Pete said earlier this week, they're like, do you expect to be back? He's like, I expect to be back at this point. And to your point on Dallas, if you think Dan Quinn is the guy for Seattle, you have to go kind of quick on this, right?
Well, you still have to go through the proper interview process.
Exactly.
Seattle, right?
No, I mean, you have to open the job up if you want to be involved in whoever.
And by the way, like, you know, you're going to call Bill Belichick, have a conversation. You're going to call Jim Harbaugh. Look, I would call.
You cannot have Jim Harbaugh replace Pete Carroll. That would be wild as hell.
Why can't you?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But
what's your deal, bro?
You would call all those candidates. Mike Vrabel. You call all those candidates. You have those conversations, and you figure out kind of where you're at that point. I actually find the whole Dan Quinn situation more interesting because let's just look at Atlanta, for example. Atlanta didn't get involved in the quarterback market when they could have for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
All right. He's the MVP this year. They're the number one team in the AFC. They're the number one team in the league, depending on how you look at them. Yeah. Dan Quinn's not one of the hot coaching candidates, and yet he was your head coach, took you to your Super Bowl, but you let him go. Like, I look at those sorts of organizational decisions where they go through a rough patch, and I look at it in a similar light to like what Amy Sistrunk Adams has done in Tennessee. Like, I didn't like the move of firing Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, I didn't.
And now you look at the fact that, he's going to be a guy that Seattle brings in, right? I could easily see him going out there and taking over that job if it's not New England or wherever. Like he becomes a top candidate.
Yeah.
So it's just funny to me how, like, we look at some of these coaches who get cycled through, and it's like, well, maybe they should have stayed in the place that they were at in the first place if the owners just had the ability to say, let's just stay the course here. Like, we feel like we've got the guy. We're just going through a rough patch. And that happens. Like that happens from time to time. I just kind of find that as an interesting observation.
Well, we talked about that before, Brady. We were like, there's probably going to be 8 to 10. It looks like we're going to be right as far as head coaching vacancies. And we're like, you better be damn sure if you're ownership that you're firing the guy that potentially can't lead your franchise in the future, because it's going to be a carousel going around. And if you fire your guy, like you said, he's a hot commodity and 3 other 4 teams want him, are you making the right decision? You better have a concrete plan in place, because if not, you'll have these issues that the Carolina Panthers are having, the Atlanta Falcons are having, and then you'll keep firing coaches every 2 years. So the Tennessee thing was a little interesting just because, when you hire a new GM, they kind of want to bring their own guy in. Yeah. You get one trial year to kind of rectify things. And there was rumors that him and Rand Carthon didn't get along. We know he didn't get along with John Robinson either. So we know that
John Robinson just traded AJ Brown. That will do that as well too. But there's rumors that he's hard to work with. But we know his players love to play for him, and he's a demanding coach. But like you said, Vrabel's going to be a hot commodity.
I look at situations too, like the New Orleans Saints, and I wonder, or even the Chicago Bears, when you retain a head coach, you might make other moves, but then you see a guy who gets on the market, like a Mike Vrabel or obviously Pete Carroll's there. Yeah, do you then go, we kind of like that guy a lot? Like, what happens if we could have that guy?
Well, and I think it's interesting too. You think about this like with college coaches too, and I bring this up just because as an NC State fan, Carolina fans are sick of Mac Brown. They're like, no, I'm just saying and we're like, yes, by all means, fire Mac Brown in a cycle with all these big name colleges also searching for coaches. Good luck finding somebody who's going to do better than him. And I think that's what you look at with the Titans. It's like, you realize that this is going to be the busiest head coaching cycle in the last 5 years. And crazy. The Tennessee Titans, with maybe a quarterback, Jeffrey Simmons, and nothing else really, are going to be like, hey, who wants to come to Nashville and work here? I mean, that's why it's a questionable move. I think with Seattle, you have a team that has, like, it's a good time. Pete Carroll rebuilt this team and gets to go out on a high note. He sold high, he sold low or sold high, I guess, on Russell Wilson at the right time.
Low, sold high.
Yeah, brought low, sold high.
Well, he sold high on Russ, about as high as you could sell on Russ.
Yeah.
He got multiple first-round picks from the Broncos.
That's what we're saying. Sure. He's like, he brought him low, third-round pick.
Yeah,
he didn't pay him, but he still wasn't making crazy top quarterback money. But and then you got so much in return for him.
Did anyone really win in that? I mean, you'd say Seattle won huge. To get Witherspoon. Well, because they get Witherspoon.
Charles Cross, Witherspoon, Drew Lock.
I understand based on what they got, but I'm just saying it hasn't really led them anywhere. And now they went
to the playoffs and went 9-8 this year. I think you can argue that they won the trade pretty easily.
I mean, a lot of people thought last year they were going to be probably picking top 5, and they went to the playoffs.
Yeah,
but you'd also be someone who would be like, definitively the Rams won the Goff Stafford trade. Like, you would probably say that, Will.
I think both teams won that trade.
Okay, that's fair.
I was about to say, I would say if you look in totality and if you look at what each has done, now again, Stafford has the ring, so you're always going to ultimately say the Rams won.
Goff has taken
they both have the same amount of wins. They have the same completion percentage and everything. So.
Goff has won a division.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think that's like Will said, I think that's a win-win for both teams.
Yeah, I think the Rams, Goff, Stafford is a win-win. Goff reinvented his career. The Lions are the best team in that division now. The Lions have a Super Bowl window. And Stafford won a ring and is, cementing his Hall of Fame legacy. So I think both teams won that trade. I think Denver lost the Russ trade bad. Like, one of the worst trades we've seen in a long, long time. You give up a bunch of
No, they've given up a lot. I guess my question just is, I mean, if they didn't sign Russ to the contract, which doesn't have anything to do with the trade, right? That was Denver's decision.
That happened after, yeah.
Okay.
I would still think because the compensation.
The contract makes it look bad.
It makes it look awful.
I mean, the contract makes it look awful, but when you traded for Russ, you knew you had to give him a contract.
You got to give him some money. Yeah. Yep.
Well, sure, but I'm just saying those are two separate transactions. That's all I'm saying.
I link them together. I think we're being
link them together. Yes.
So the Montez Sweat trade. Do you not link him getting a new deal as part of the?
No, I'm saying they're two separate transactions, though.
The Chase Claypool trade. Do you not include the? No.
Oh my God!
Let's go back to the Seahawks though. So you think where? All right. So I've got the ranking the NFL head coaching vacancies article, and I currently have Washington 1 because I think
as the best place to go.
I think the ownership change and like the history of that franchise, and
Wow, that's
you
interesting.
open at
They have a
quarterback.
terrible name. Let's just start there. Can you change?
They have to get a quarterback.
If you go there, can you change the name?
Josh Harris is open to changing the name. He's open. But they have the number 2 overall pick, so you can get one of these quarterbacks in this draft class if you like one of them.
I'm just thinking Bulls. Like, why not the Washington Bulls? You know, is it too close to the Bills? I don't know. It's just coming to me right now. In this
too close to the Bullets, I think. How about is it because I'm wearing the Bulls hat?
That was the hat. There you go.
Why don't we call him the? You know what? I can't say what I was gonna make a joke.
Oh my goodness!
Why don't we call them? Okay, so Washington 1 for me. I think the top 4 are pretty close. Washington 1, Chargers 2, Falcons 3, Raiders 4, big gap, Titans, bigger gap, Panthers. Where was Seattle slot?
Seattle in there.
I know. Where would Seattle slot in there? Where do you think?
Oh, Seattle's definitely in the top 4.
Seattle be up
for sure.
I would say 2. Honestly, I would say Chargers then Seattle. Then honestly, I would go Falcons then Commanders.
Look, I mean, here's the thing with Washington. You've got some pieces, but there's a decent amount of building to do. However, you have the ability to do so with new ownership, et cetera. But you need a new stadium. You need a new name. There's a lot going on there.
Correct.
With the Chargers, you obviously have the quarterback. You've got some pieces, but you're in cap hell. So you've got to restructure there, and you've got an ownership that doesn't like to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
So there's that issue. Seattle, to me, I think I might rank number 1. They've got a foundation that Pete and John Schneider built.
Correct.
He's going to kind of hang around. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And you've still got Geno there, but you also have some weapons. And I think the biggest thing is, like, what kind of coach are you looking for? Because do you bring in a defensive-minded coach since the defense is the issue, even though that's what Pete Carrol
That's what I was thinking. That is true, though.
Yeah. That's the hard part.
Well, I mean, I think with that, you have to really sit down and think, are we going to have Geno for the next 2 or 3 years? Because I think they technically could get out of the deal after this year. Or is this a situation where we're going to draft the guy and we need to mold him? Then do you maybe lean towards the offensive-minded coach?
I think it'd be really interesting to see, because this rookie quarterback draft class could have 5 guys, 6 guys in that conversation of being first-round talents, depending on the grades. And so that's where, based on where Seattle's at, you kind of look at it and go, it would be interesting to see.
Did JJ ever officially declare, though?
No.
He hasn't, right? I keep seeing him in mock drafts, but I was like, I didn't see him declare yet.
Draft eligible hasn't declared, which, again, I think it might depend on what Jim Harbaugh decides to do.
All right. I tend to agree with that. Who we think Dan Quinn? I mean, Dan Quinn's the obvious move here. It is interesting that this happened. Sure. Do Mike Vrabel and John Schneider have any connections? I think just the timing is interesting with, like,
I mean, they're both dudes. You could see them, like, growing out together. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see those two, like, hanging out in Lake Washington together, or like ripping on a boat.
Could you see Vrabel as a Seattle guy, though? That's the question.
Maybe.
I don't think he fits the profile of a Seattle guy.
There's a lot of timber out there. You could see him as like a lumberjack. You could see him out there.
Maybe doing something in the wilderness, maybe.
Chopping some trees down or something.
Maybe.
I think John Schneider is probably easily top 5 GMs you want to get a beer with, and Vrabel's probably a top 5 coach you want to get a beer with too.
For sure.
Schneider's funny as hell.
Yeah. Well, I make this case too. Like, what organization most closely?
I've had beers with Schneider. He's a great guy.
Okay, we get it. You and John are
name drop there.
No, man. Like, I don't think I'm not. I just happen to have had beers with him. Like, had a beer with him at the combine before.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. It's been great. I'm sure you guys have had beers together. Beards together too. What organization most closely mimics the Patriots? I might say the Seahawks. If you look at their run of success too in the NFC West, not having the same amount of success, but like regular season winning,
consistency
from that perspective. Like, if you're looking for New England, but you don't want to go and follow Bill Belichick, or you don't want to work for Mr. Kraft, you look at that roster and go, I don't know about that situation if that job comes open. Seattle's kind of like the next closest thing if you're a former Patriot and you're kind of doing things that way. Just throwing that out there.
That is an interesting point. And I think you look at the Seattle roster too. You got DK.
Good roster.
Lockett, JSN at wide receiver. Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet at running back. You got an offensive line that's been reworked with Charles Cross, one of the Broncos picks up there. And then defensively, you trade for Leonard Williams. Boy Mafe had a breakout season. He was one of the guys that got with the Broncos picks too. And then Devin Witherspoon, who looks like a star. There's a lot to like here, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. Oh, so if you had to pick Mike Vrabel or Dan Quinn? Who do you think?
Oh man,
I think the familiarity with Quinn just makes it too obvious.
I think he's been to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it's Dan Quinn with Seattle.
Yeah. I will say this:
Dan Quinn makes sense.
Yeah.
I will say this: every single one of the, like the rap sheet, Schefter, the insider guys, they all tweet he's out. Every single one of them has tweeted Dan Quinn interest, and as soon as I brought it up, you mentioned Dan Quinn before even really getting. And by the way, like shout out to Pete Carroll, awesome coach, incredible run,
coach,
Hall of Fame.
Can I say this too?
Yeah,
it's even more so Dan Quinn if Pete Carroll remains within the organization because of the culture of that locker room.
Correct.
Like Dan Quinn was there with him. He knows what that's like. That's a really, really unique locker room. It's super, super player-driven, player-run. And I'm not saying that like Mike Vrabel couldn't come in and do a great job or another coach couldn't do a great job. But Dan Quinn understands like what made that Super Bowl and the back-to-back Super Bowl teams in Seattle special and how it was led with those big personalities. Pete really embraced that. The players they draft and that are there now embrace that. They take ownership and accountability of it. You have to be a coach that's willing to adopt, I think, a similar philosophy or environment if Dan Quinn's going to stay, or excuse me, if Pete Carroll's going to stay within the organization. Because I think you're still going to have that impact in the locker room.
I think there's a reasonable case to be made if you want to be sort of connect some dots that Pete Carroll was kind of on the fence about what he wanted to do. Through some back channels, you find out, hey, do we think this is the year Dan Quinn's going to maybe make a jump away out of Dallas? He's like, his agent's like, yeah, Dan's ready for another job. And then you're like, okay, we've got a one shot to really transition with a guy who, like you say, Brady, can come in and basically knows exactly, like there's going to be very little it's just a transition. I mean, that's about as smooth as you get when you change coaches in the NFL, if that is what happens. So that is certainly interesting. And we will, of course, monitor it. Let's take a break. When we come back, revenge games. Are they real? We will tell you next. Run it back. No point, no fear, no fame, no story, no blood, no pain, never overcome me. This is my name, this is my story. This is my town, my territory. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the end of the road. You want to win it all? Better be ready to go. All right, welcome back to the Big Six Podcast. Will Brinson. BQ news. I don't know why I did a hard reset there. It's the graphics behind you guys.
It was in your indigestion too. You're like, well, Brinson.
I think he was too enamored with the graphics and the Bills versus Steelers.
What do you have for lunch
on CBS this Sunday?
What do you have for lunch, Will?
I had a poke bowl for lunch.
There you go. Yeah, a little indigestion, probably with sesame seeds.
No, it was I got it's the hype. I get like hype, like like big NFL news to me is like drinking a Red Bull. I get jacked.
A natural
up.
Red Bull.
Yeah, a natural,
Yeah,
Pete
got
Carroll,
an NBA hat. Yeah, that makes sense. You're jacked up on NFL news.
It's the Durham Bulls, Brady. I'm not sure if you know what color the Chicago Bulls are.
They look like the Chicago Bulls from our angle. It's hard to
yes, noted blue.
I was gonna say I was surprised I had this in blue.
Is that blue? It looks black.
It does look black. It looks black and red. It looks like the Bulls.
It looks like the Bulls, dude.
He's looking around.
Take this jersey down.
What does it say on that jersey?
Brinson sucks. Go Irish. Bob Quinn.
That's right. Oh, Bobby.
Oh, Bobby Quinn.
That's how I signed it for you, Bobby.
That's hilarious.
Brady, you gonna do the emergency podcast with us on Pete Carroll after this?
No. Why would we do an emergency podcast when we already
just talked about it?
I know. I'm just messing with Brady. Okay. Matthew Stafford, excuse me. He doesn't like being called Matt. And Jared Goff going up against each other. We also have, of course, Mike McCarthy against the Packers.
Ooh.
Joe Flacco next round could be against the Ravens.
Oh. Storylines.
Revenge games, my favorite thing in the NFL.
Yeah.
Buy or sell revenge games are real for NFL players.
They're real.
Of course they're real, but it's
I would
more
say
than
this.
Just one player.
Like the Stafford situation in Detroit was like, it's probably not revenge for him because of how they parted ways. Like they gave him the opportunity to go to the Rams.
Okay.
And he wins a Super Bowl. So it's more of like the flip side. It's more of like a revenge game for Goff in that case.
Yep.
Yes. Well, so revenge needs to be classified a little bit here. It can be the revenge game has different categories to it.
Okay.
So like Matthew Stafford doesn't have to be seeking like retribution and like vengeance against the Lions for this to be,
which is more.
I think Goff is honestly
100%.
No. Prove to everyone.
So like Baker Mayfield playing the Panthers, or Baker Mayfield playing the Browns, that's a revenge game.
Yeah,
because you got shipped out. Goff playing the Rams, revenge game. Yeah. Now Stafford still counts as a revenge game, but he's not like it's a different layer of revenge.
I don't think it's really revenge.
The game means more to him. He never played. This is his first playoff game in Detroit, and he played there for 12 years. This game means a ton to him.
I think it just means a lot because he's going back to the place that kind of made him a man.
I mean,
that's what I mean.
They'll be appreciative of him, right?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I see it differently. I see it as a revenge game for Goff.
But what I'm telling you is that
fans are in hell this week.
This is a different level of revenge. It slots into the idea of the revenge game without being pure revenge. Look, I'm the revenge game guy. Don't look at me skeptically like I didn't come up with these.
All right. But Flacco's an interesting one too if they win. Because you could make a case how things ended there at the end of his time in Baltimore. Like maybe he felt a little bit wronged by it and all that. So maybe that one kind of plays into your narrative. Outside of that, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, Dallas.
If you were playing quarterback for the Houston Texans this week, Brady, would that be a revenge game? Yes or no?
Kind of. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like you love the Browns. You grew up a Browns fan.
The difference is like, you know, it's a different ownership group, different general manager like 8 times over, different head coach how many times over. Like honestly, like you don't have any ill will towards the place that drafted you.
I know.
And even if they shipped you off, like, they shipped you off, but that was a different coach, different general manager that handled that. So it just hits different. Like, of course you want to win. You want to win regardless of the storyline behind it. I just don't buy into it quite as much unless it's all like everything's still there but you. And that's where I think it hits a little more home with Jared Goff because of who he's playing and then obviously who he's playing against in this case, like, and who he's playing for in this case.
Or even McCarthy, I could see him feeling the type of way just because.
Yeah, like Mike McCarthy makes some sense there. Yeah. I think when you look at that and break down that matchup too, I'm sure Big Mike wants to slap a nice one on the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, like when Russ went back to Seattle to start the season last year. That clear revenge game, and he fell short, flat on his face.
They lost that game.
Same, right? Like he had a lot of those same pieces were still there, obviously in the front office, coaching staff, even some players, and so that's what makes it, in my opinion.
Correct.
Pete Prisco says he's like, revenge games are stupid. It's idiotic. It doesn't make any sense. No one gets more hyped up. You think they try harder? What do you think? They care more? I'm like, yes, they do care more.
Yeah, they do. I'm here to tell you, Pete. They actually do.
Like
it's just like when you play an old team. Like you said, it just depends on the circumstance. Like no breakup is amicable. Everybody always talks about taking this to relationships. Like it was an amicable breakup. Somebody's gonna feel away. One person's gonna feel away more than the other person, right? So. No matter what, like there's always a little bit of added incentive when you play your old team. Even if, you decided it was free agency, you got more money somewhere else, you feel away because you're like, y'all didn't feel like I was worth this. So when I come here, I lay it on the line every week. But it's just a little added incentive to beat you guys just because you guys decided not to pay me what this other team did.
Agreed. Okay. Let's take another break. And when we come back,
good job. Will.
Hey, it's a weird day. Pete Carroll gets fired mid-show. It sort of throws things for a loop.
Did he get fired or is he moving upstairs?
He's no longer the head coach. He got promoted. He got laterally promoted. Is that good? Is that bad?
It's like making the same money.
That's true.
We're gonna play playoff survivor pool. That's right, playoff survivor. We'll tell you how, why, and we'll do it next.
There's no Belichickery here.
When Sunday football isn't enough.
Dislike that take.
Great take.
That other pregame show will put you over the tops.
I'm all in. Let's go viral here.
Every Sunday, all the insight you need on CBS Sports Network.
Okie dokie. How about that? If you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/NFL on CBS, We've got Katie Mox, Adam Shine, a bunch of different people on the tops that of the pregame show. Make sure to check that out before the playoff game on Sunday, which is on Sunday, CBS, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, which will maybe be the top pick. We have a Survivor pool we're going to play. You guys know how Survivor works?
Yes.
Used to be called a different name, and they politically correctly had to get rid of that, which is just amazing. It's used to be called a. You know what? No, I'm not going to. Here are the rules. Fantasies came to an end. Dews kicked Brady's butt. No more Thursday Night Football. We need a way for you two to face off each week. So we're going to do a playoff Survivor pool. I will also pick a team for fun. To make it more interesting. 3 teams. Each pool member chooses one NFL team each week. You cannot choose the same team as anyone else.
All right.
You may not choose the same team twice in the playoffs. Picks are straight up, no point spread. If your pick's correct, you survive. If your pick is incorrect, you are eliminated. Harry has randomized the order.
Allegedly.
No, look, random.org.
So I win in fantasy and I get to pick last?
No, it was random. Harry
Allegedly.
He did
Harry randomly put me first.
I see you put that out there just to make sure we saw that too.
Harry randomly.
Yeah,
nice
now,
photo.
Is this only wild card weekend, or do you get to pick
only wild card weekend?
Field?
So you have to survive to next week.
So I can't pick Baltimore.
Exactly.
No Baltimore, San Francisco. Yeah, yes, you cannot pick Baltimore.
On that. I love it. That's why I asked.
I was waiting for him to make a
That's
pick.
why I asked.
Do you know how funny it would be if we included the number 1 seeds? It was like whoever was third was the only person that had to survive.
So although this year there's so much parity, it could be wild.
Yeah. So when I look at these games, I'm going to go ahead because I'm trying to time this to get you guys out right at 250 for HQ and whatnot. If you look at these games, some pretty tight spreads.
I know who he's
only 2 games, above 7. I don't know if I want to mess around with the Packers. And in fact, I'm really more of a company man. I love CBS. I love CBS Sports.
I knew he was going there.
I love Paramount Plus, which is where, and I love the Buffalo Bills. My Super Bowl. Now, here's the thing. Where it gets a little interesting. If I pick the Bills this week, I can't pick the Bills the rest of the time.
That's correct.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So it's a little tricky, and I can't. It's
and
nobody
you
else
pick for the love of God.
Supposedly, we'll pick the Rams to win it all.
Yeah, I know.
Bills over Rams. Yeah. Rams over Bills. I will choose as my team to advance the Buffalo Bills.
All that for picking the team you
the
talked
top
about
team.
for 1 minute, and yet we were trying to get us out of here on time. I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs.
I am going to take the Joe Flacco-led Cleveland Browns.
Wow.
Okay. Road favorites. Interesting.
There's some smart.
Hey, I do have a tidbit for you guys.
All AFC teams, no one trusts anyone in the NFC.
I think the NFC go either way in all those games.
Yeah, I think all the dogs should win.
Joe Flacco is tied for the most playoff road wins in NFL history with 7, with the great Tom Brady.
It's incredible thinking how many times too.
I don't think it's crazy that January Joe could end the quarterback.
I picked him this early.
He could I think Joe Flacco could win a Super Bowl with the Browns. That's a hot take, but I believe it.
I don't even think that's a hot take.
I was just saying, like,
he's streaky, man. He's streaky in the playoffs, and that defense is one of the top defenses in football.
The team is built, man.
And what about Joe Flacco's skill set has really changed in the last 10 years? Like, not that much. I mean, he's still
nothing really. He even showed some mobility the last few weeks.
But again, like, he's the perfect fit for what they asked their quarterback, what they need him to do. He fits perfectly in that system. Also, a great example why you didn't need to trade for Deshaun Watson. Just go get Joe Flacco. All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, a pleasure, gentlemen. For Dews, for Brady, I'm Brinson. We will see you guys later.